you done heard all week. Hey, this is no holds barred. I'm talking freedom of speech. So check your feelings at the door as we continue to speak about what? Sex, love, and relationship. And even conversations about politics. A little bit of comedy and knowledge, man. With a host to teach you all about empowerment. Now what we doing? We're chilling in the chat house. And where we at? We're chilling in the chat house. Now what we doing?
This episode of The Chat House is being brought to you by Tracks on Deck Productions. If you're looking for quality music for your intros, podcasts, videos, or whatever it is that you do, then look no further. Tracks on Deck Productions is the place for you.
Hi, this is AT from The Chat House with highlights of Walter Dukes. Walter Dukes is a very accomplished businessman who spent over 30 years with Georgia Power in various leadership roles, retiring as Senior Vice President of Custom Operations in Metro Atlanta area. Mr. Dukes is very active in his community and serves as a pastor. He's also a husband and a father of 3 sons. He is also currently working on his doctoral degree.
Hello, Kenny.
Hey, Mr. Dukes, how are you?
Everything's going quite well. They're going quite well.
Great.
Hear from you, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, earlier we were talking to you about the power of education and how it enhanced and changed your life.
Right.
If you would, please, what was your official title when you retired from Georgia Power?
That's Senior Vice President of Custom Operations for Metro Atlanta.
Oh, okay. For our listeners, let's just set the stage and give us an idea of what your upbringing was like.
Well, certainly, I'd be happy to. When I was raised in a family of 12, actually, it was 10 children, 10 siblings, and my parents. And of course, we were mother and father in the home. And of course, we were a Christian family. My dad was a deacon, and my grandfather, who lived fairly close to us, he was a pastor of the church. So we spent a lot of time together in church and those kinds of things. And we were a very close family, and we grew up that way. Dad raised us that way. And we went to church most Sundays. We spent a lot of time with my grandfather, learned a lot from my granddad, learned a lot from my dad. He always poured into us, and we worked hard. We were a hardworking family, learned the value of work early on in life. And in fact, there were times when I would have to do my schoolwork on the bus, because when I got home, there was going to be time to go back to the fields or go back and feed up or feed the animals and those kinds of things, or early in the morning, even before we went to school. So, but early on, we had that farm, and we lost that farm back in 1973. And so none of my siblings really went to college, because they really had to spend a lot of time working. But ultimately, I was the first in the family to end up going to college. But before that, went to one of those very small elementary school, and where all the family went to. And then ultimately I went to Bob's Academy, somewhere down about the 10th grade or so. And all of my family were pushing for me and pulling for me to succeed and to not be on the farm or doing other things, or maybe working in a factory. They really believed that I could go and succeed. And Daddy pushed me really hard. My grandfather did too, and my siblings. They also did the same thing. My siblings actually encouraged me along the way to do something, because actually after I graduated, then all of them behind me either got a trade or they went to college. And so it was kind of a breaking point in the family when things turned around. So, but we grew up very, very close. And even today, we're very close because of the way Daddy raised us and my mother raised us. And so that's kind of the landscape of our family. And this is a strong, hard-working family, and learn the value of work. And I think that is one of the things that really excites me about what they were able to do. My dad did not finish high school, but he knew hard work was important. Learning that the education was even more important, but as important, I would say, because he felt like the work and then education, which put having that work ethic will get you there. Because I'll be honest with you, when you look at education, you got to have a strong work ethic. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
many times when I was on the buses doing my work, when other children would say, "Well, why are you doing that? Why are you doing algebra? Or why are you why are you taking an algebra class? Or why are you working on the bus?" And they would be doing other things, but I would work on that bus and get my because I knew I couldn't do it when I got home.
Right, yeah, to work.
So I decided I'd just do it on the bus and going to school or even coming back. I took advantage of that time. So it even throughout my career, work ethic has been so important. But that education with work ethic, you can't stop it, man. Lord, just do some wonderful things.
Mm. Yeah.
Mhm.
So just so that the listeners would be clear, what time frame was this again?
This was in I graduated from high school in 1976
Mm-hmm.
and was born in 1958. The same year my father actually lost his arm. My
Mm.
daddy was he was had one arm, but then he could do about as much work as two men really
Mm.
with one arm. And because he was a hard working man, he learned how to use a prosthetic. He learned how to use that well. And so, but 1958, and I was about middle of the family, number five in that family. So I grew up in the 60s and the 70s and
Mm.
80s and graduated from college in 1981. So you can see those about the years and that we're talking about.
Uh, so when I look at the years and I think about history, um, in my own family as well, how did education become a major factor? Because I know at that time, as you said before, farm work, factory work, working with your hands, some type of trade maybe. Um, how did education and even the idea of engineering was even a thought at that time period? Like it had to be relatively new.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Kenny. Education really was started in my family. My dad was he was a consummate pusher of education, even though he had not gotten his high school diploma, but he still valued education, even though we were somewhat tied to the farm for
Mm-hmm.
a period of time, and that was kind of what really shaped the siblings above me. They really didn't get a chance to do all the things I did until that farm was sold back in 1973.
Mm-hmm.
But my grandfather was there. My grandfather was also there even when I was growing up. He would always have us come to his house, and these were the grandchildren. We would sit on his, he had this chair. I can still remember that chair. He would sit there, and we sit on the arm of his chair, and he would compete with us on ABCs when we were very young. I mean, ABCs. He could say his ABCs backward just as fast as we could say them forward,
Wow.
and we would compete with him. We would compete with him to see who would win. Then he taught us mathematics. He was a great mathematician, and he taught us how to do math in our head. If you had the abilities, and I did have the ability to do math, but he would teach us how to do things, and you almost like you close your eyes and you could almost see those numbers and how you can put them together. He would turn a number into a zero, and he add the zeros or multiply the zeros, and then you start grabbing the other numbers in your head, and then you can actually come up with an answer. And he could come up with
Mm.
answers so quickly. And even today, I can calculate numbers pretty quicker than most people can do it. By the time they put out their calculator, I can do it
Wow.
because he taught me how to do that stuff years ago. And he called them noughts. They were really zeros, but he called them noughts during that time. And but that to me was one of the things that pushed me really hard. And he had an expectation that we would go on further in school, and he being a pastor, and we drove him to church all the time, and he pushed it. My daddy pushed it, my family, my mother did, and all my siblings. And so then when I got an opportunity in high school, I was in the 10th grade, and I'll never forget um, my counselor was looking for an opportunity. Well, I guess we got opportunities for call a better chance program. It likes to call a better chance, and she submitted my name for that, and I was able to go to a boarding high school, Bob's Academy, um, um, and I won't say free because I had to do work study.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time, when I was at Boggs Academy, and I was in a class of 27 of us in my particular class, and all when we graduated, it was 27 of us graduated. But actually, I had been valedictorian in my class in the seventh grade, valedictorian in the eighth grade, and I ended up being valedictorian even in the my 12th grade year,
Wow.
coming out of there, out of the 12th grade. But but at Bob's Academy, and they were pushing for you. Education was education. They wanted to give you a great education there, but they also wanted you to go beyond that and go to college. And so, about in the high 90s, probably 97% of the students went on to college.
Mm.
But I never forget that what they say you have. We used to say you have to orate to graduate. You had to come up with this 10-minute speech as a junior in school and say you talked about whatever you wanted to talk about, but you had to. That was part of our English class. You had to orate to graduate, and I did one on we need more black engineers.
Huh.
Actually, it was more we need more black professionals, and then honed it down to one of my points: more black engineers. That's what got me excited in engineering. To be honest with you,
Hmm.
all before that, I wanted to be my mother's doctor. My mother would not even let me play football because she felt like I would get hurt. And but she always wanted me to be her doctor. One day I was going to be her doctor, and so my goal was to go into chemical engineering. And after looking at it, and after studying, and after doing the research on engineers and black professionals, and how few there were of engineers, I got excited about being an engineer. And my mother didn't know that I really wanted to be an engineer. And I never told her until I made my change in my major. And I first got to college at Morehouse. I really didn't like biology as much as I thought I would, or didn't like didn't like chemistry as much as I thought. And so I changed my major to double E.
Mm.
But I can always go back to the start of it. Was when I did the research. I learned the information about the differences, how blacks were just not in those areas,
Right.
and I just felt like I could make a difference, and I really wanted to make a difference, and I never forget that speech, and I gave it with strong passion because I really truly believed that, and so I think. One of the things that's important in education, and when you make a decision about what you're gonna do, you gotta have a passion to do it,
I agree.
and there were many of my friends even told me, an engineer. At first they thought it was a trained, then
Because it's
so what are you
relatively
doing,
new.
engineer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then when I told them what it was, they said, well, you probably won't even get a job in that area. So
Oh, wow.
there was a lot of fear in it, thinking that there's no blacks. They had not even known of a black engineer. So and so when it provided itself for me, I tell you what, I was and I aimed high. I did go to Morehouse thinking I was going to be a doctor. My mother's a doctor. I was going to take the chemical engineering route, and that was how I was going to do it to satisfy what she wanted me to do. And so, but I realized very quickly that was not what I wanted to do, and so, but I didn't. When you aim high, you drop low. I just dropped down to double E, which
Hmm.
I don't consider. I really didn't consider it a drop. I'll be honest with you. I considered it, engineers and doctors on the same level, very very much professionals,
Right.
and for a long time we always thought that you either had to be an engineer or had to be a doctor or a lawyer to be successful. No, 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 no. I think when you think about education, you think about success is in those areas where you have a passion and you'll be good at it and you do well at it. But now I would tell you that some of these fields that they have to be careful about, where you need to do some research, and there's no opportunities when you graduate. And if the fields are already saturated with certain areas, and that's pretty hard to get opportunities. So, um, um, but in fact, criminal justice was an area where a lot of folks were going into at one time. And it was
Hmm.
hard, good area, but it was just so saturated with, and then the folks found themselves having to do the police work and didn't quite go to law school, and so this kind of created a problem. That was during my season. I don't know what it would be today.
Mm-hmm.
But then during my season, that was a difficult place. And then there was some others in the area. Sociology was having challenges. But I think if people choose the area with their passion, with something that they feel like that they can do well at, and it's one of the growing areas, then I think they'll see that there will actually be opportunities for them when they graduate.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you during that time period, like what was it like going to college? Because we got to keep in mind the time period.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Like what was it like? Like you.
Yeah, and and I'll be honest with you, country boy, and I just and I'm not ashamed of where I was at the time. I was young. I was coming from a rural area, country boy,
In Georgia,
and from in Georgia,
red clay.
and exactly, and I never forget that first day. My brothers, all seven of us, got in one vehicle, and my parents didn't go, but they were the first ones to take me to college, and I was sitting in between all of them. But that showed you one that was their support for me,
Mm-hmm.
and they were very proud of me doing that. So then they took me up to the college to Morehouse, and left me there. And of course, then the first thing I do, I get a chance to go downtown. Just to give you an idea, um, uh, we got a group of us. I got with some folks that I knew, happened to know that was at Waynesboro High School, and then we took us downtown. And the thing, we used to ride up and down the elevators. I must tell you, I was not. That one of the tallest buildings in Atlanta then on Peachtree Street. When we went up and had the glass elevators, and so I got excited about just riding up and down the elevator.
So you in Atlanta,
So
Georgia, the capital of Georgia, and your
so
excitement, your highlight was riding the
yeah, ride up and
elevator.
down the elevator. And here it is, we went in the building. I mean, it was, yeah, but that just shows you how excited I
Yeah.
was about leaving where I was, and then just the growth from just going from there to going to that place and seeing, my Lord, I didn't realize all this was here. And so that was the beginning of it. But then I had to work during college as well. I had to work and again get loans and financial aid, and like I said, work study, and then even then, there was times when I finally got an apartment outside, but apartments was cheaper, and still had to find dollars. And many times my mother would borrow from another brother to give to me. They think they're giving it to my mother. But actually, she turn around and send it to me, right? And then plus they would send me dollars, and so it was a family effort. I'll be honest with you, for them to get me through college, because the dollars were just weren't there to
Mhm.
make it happen. But I just believed that it could, and it did. I never forget that 2 pieces of chicken and one biscuit at Chicken Church's Fried Chicken cost me $1.03.
That was a long time ago.
And yeah, a long time ago, exactly. $1.03, and I would go there on that road fairly close to the campus. Sometimes that was my dinner,
Mhm.
and then and let me tell you, on Sundays when I got a chance to go to S&S cafeteria and get some cube steak and rice, my Lord, if I ever got a chance to do that, I'd probably hog heaven. Yeah, so it was certainly not easy, but it's doable.
Right.
If it's doable for me, you can where I came from.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's doable for people even today.
Well, you was talking about family support, and I know the family structure of the day is much different. Many different dynamics of what people consider family.
Hmm.
But when you're talking about family support, um, I know a lot of people sometimes don't even have family, and
Right.
to hear some of the things or the mindset your family had, where they collectively had this for one of their siblings or their son, or I think that's what we need in the African American community now. Like to be proud of somebody that has an ability, maybe sometimes greater than our own, but
Hmm.
for all of them to rally behind you
Hmm.
in such a way, man, it's actually a beautiful thing.
It
Um,
is.
yeah, that was my next question. Actually, was your family supportive through your career?
They were all the way through my career, even when I graduated from college to even after starting out when I first started out as an engineer when I graduated in '81, started down at a plant in a plant environment and went back home. I'll be honest with you, I want to be back around my family, be back around siblings, and always enjoyed that connection. And but I immediately saw that I was there about 7 years, got involved in the community, and got really engaged. And even during that time, family was very supportive of all the things I was doing. But I got an opportunity to leave Waynesboro primarily because um, my youngest child had Down syndrome, and actually I had been offered a job in Atlanta, and I turned it down. And
Mm,
it was a promote. It was, well, I guess, a lateral position, but I turned it down primarily because I didn't want to leave Waynesboro. And it was yeah, it was Waynesboro. I knew everybody, and it was a good place, and raised a family. Okay, but I got home that particular day, and I told my wife, told Mary, I said, "Listen, I got offered an opportunity in Atlanta, but I turned it down." She said, "What you do that for?" See, I just knew Mary was going to say no because we had when we moved from Keysville to Waynesboro, she left her. She was from a large family as well. She moved from Keysville to Waynesboro. Then that was a stretch. Then to move from Waynesboro to Atlanta, I just knew she would say no. I
mm.
got home that day. She said, "What do you do that for?" She said, "That would have been a great opportunity for Matthew. Probably we could learn, we get more things for him." I said, "Wow,
Hmm.
okay." so so then I had to go back and win the job back again. But I tell you, that was one of the that was one of the best moves we've ever made.
Huh.
And and to relocate, even though it was a challenge to move away from family, to move away from what we've known all our lives, and to have family there. But it began it really was what inspired lifted my career, I'd say, because that you got to learn. Sometimes you have to move in order to grow, and you have to go other places and learn new things to grow. And so then when I left there, and became a lobbyist. I was a lobbyist for the company and got to know legislators from throughout the state. And I traveled the state and really got to know all of Georgia, knew how the laws are made, and really got involved in politics and
Hmm.
understood politics. And before I knew it, I got promoted to a manager, and then ultimately to a vice president, another manager in a distribution area, and then actually I ended up moving four more times after that. And those moves, every time I made a move, it was a promotion. I came back to Augusta, and I went back to Atlanta, and but it was opportunities for growth,
Mm-hmm.
and I began to be content with relocating and seeing new things, and then Mary became content with that, and um, the fact that we would need to relocate. But we learned so much in every area where we've ever gone. We learned a lot. We grew from having that experience. But I always kept the connection back home, and
Right.
just had a passing appreciation this past weekend, and three of my siblings showed up. you know,
Awesome.
so
That's
so
awesome.
so that tells you that that long term building the relationships, because a lot of time we can't. Even though families are divided today, and they're probably not as close, but we got to have somebody that we can't forget, those people that really help you to get to
Absolutely.
where you are. You
Absolutely.
gotta always remember those people and keep those connections, because at the end of the day, when something goes wrong, you got them with you.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
mhm.
You were talking about the moving back and forth and stuff like that. Um, at any time, was it like difficult or stressful, like moving up and down moving up the corporate ladder, and what was that like? As far as
Yeah,
was it difficult?
it was difficult, and and I never forget my first officer job. In that officer meaning that I became a vice president, and you become, if you leave from the ranks and go to an officer position, then you have to go in and before a board, and you're there, it's almost like an ordination process. Now I won't quite call it an ordination process, but it's a strong leap. The board has to approve all of that, and so
Mm-hmm.
I never forget my first opportunity in traveling to Atlanta, and I was nervous as all get out because not many African Americans or people that look like me were in those meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll never forget. Mary was riding with me, and Mary and I rode to Atlanta that day from Augusta. And just looking at her and how proud she was of me, she went out and purchased me a brand new suit just for that occasion.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
and yeah, and so she was very, very proud, and that support there made so much of a difference. But I'm not going to tell you I was not nervous. I was nervous about that, and then looking around and seeing who I would get support from. I'm leaving my support base,
Mm-hmm.
people that supported me, and I knew the employees, and they had my back. And suddenly now I was going to be in a place where I'm not sure, I'm not trusting.
You out of your comfort zone.
I'm out of my comfort zone, and how do I make this work? And then one of the things that really bother you a lot is if it doesn't work, what will I do? It's
Oh
almost like
yeah.
you gotta always
Oh
gotta have
yeah.
this exit strategy, this exit, and because we think through it through our minds, or either we ought to have one. You ought to have an exit strategy, and I did have one in my mind. I can always do this or always do that.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work
I
out.
think the older heads used to say you should always have a ram in the bush. I'm
Exactly.
not quite sure what that means, but yeah, they say you should always have a ram in the bush.
I would say I can always go back home if this doesn't work out. So,
Yeah.
um, so it was stressful, but that worked out well. And all the way up through all the way through my whole career, it's always been somewhat like that, because I found myself, even when I was on boards outside of the company, I found myself being one of the only African Americans on the board a lot of times. Or
Been there, done
I
that.
found myself, and so, but I found support. Sometimes they supported. You found a few that didn't support you, but you also found some that supported you
Mm-hmm.
on those boards. So I began to get comfortable in being in those kinds of atmospheres. So I think one of the things we learn over time is how do you be comfortable in different kinds of settings.
That's what I was going.
Even
That's what I was going to ask you,
mhm,
because I know a lot of young people, they're going to experience that, and
absolutely.
I think it's very important that you share the techniques or the experiences you had to overcome those obstacles.
Well, first thing I would tell you that how you deal with it is be prepared. And
Okay,
like you said,
that's fair.
the education piece is big, big. I know I had just as much education as all those around me. I had an engineering degree too,
So the
and
confidence was there.
so confidence was there.
Okay.
I was prepared. I had the confidence. I was not arrogant, and I was not puffed up about it. But I also knew that I had the foundation, and I could perform and do. If I given a chance, I could perform. So I think that's the first thing you had to do is be prepared for that experience. And I knew I was not a token. And a lot
Mm,
of people say, I knew I was not a token because I had everything that I needed. I was just as all the others on that board. The first thing people see you're only one, they go, "Oh, that's a token." Absolutely, I was not. I had
I'm glad you
everything
said that.
that I needed.
I'm glad you said
To be there, and so um, and people need to, but you'll have even your own people sometimes looking at you. Yeah, you're just there, but no, no, no. You want me to show you my paper? Look at my wall. or the others, I can show you my papers.
or
And
show them
so
some of your projects that you worked on.
it's showing my projects
Yeah.
exactly. So I was very proud of that, but then you have the experiences where the other race did give you some challenges, and
Oh
I never
yeah.
forget
Oh
I
yeah.
had one opportunity down in when I was an engineer, And as I was walking up on the project, got out of my car, and I always, as I get out of my car, when I was driving up to provide service for,
Yeah.
I've tried to size up the customer,
Mm-hmm.
and so this particular customer kind of come toward me, and I'm thinking about him because I want to give great customer service, and no matter who they are, I give great customer
Right.
service. And so I get out of my car to get ready to come up to him, and as I always do, reach out my hand to shake the hand and start looking at the what I need to provide for them on this set a pole and those kinds of things and
Mm-hmm.
engineering techniques. And I reach my hand out to him. He turns his back to me. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what?
Mm-hmm.
you know, and immediately, and I just and it was instinctively, I just kept talking, and as if it didn't even happen,
Huh.
and I worked through it. I just worked through it and kept talking. Well, I'm here to provide service, and so I didn't get angry with him. And but when I got back to the office that particular day, and because I had one of the white managers for the area he worked with me, he called me on the phone. He said, I can't. He said, that's amazing how you handle that. He said, my God. He said, I would have been so mad, you know. And I said, no, there's no sense getting mad with him. I mean, ignorance sometimes is it's on all sides, and
Mm-hmm.
certainly this ignorance here with him it was total ignorance, but I think and so I kind of heaped the coals of fire back on his head. He would probably want me to have gotten mad, but I didn't,
Right. Right.
and
It
so
wasn't worth it for you, probably.
yes, yeah, and the company was not going to send somebody else.
So you had to
So
do what
I'm
you
it.
had to do.
I'm it. This is who you got for the day, and
Surprise.
and and the other guy didn't know what to do, so I'm it. So yeah.
Oh
So
man.
those kind of things you work through. I mean, you work through. I found those experiences that I grew from a lot of it, and there were times I'm not gonna lie to you. I did get angry about some things. I didn't show my anger, but there were some times when you sat back and wonder, why do I have to fight through all of this? Why do I have to
Mm-hmm.
do all of this? Or why is this happening to me? I think we can sulk about things like that, but that's when you sit back and you figure out a strategy. What's my strategy? Well, my strategy is going to be the best I can be where I am and show them how I can do this. And in fact, there was an opportunity where one time, and it was closed. It was closed. The organization was closed to African Americans, and I got a phone call, and I was a leader, strong leader in the community, strong leader, and they knew that I probably need to be part of the organization. And somebody called me and said, "Do you need any help? Do you need me to make that happen?" I said, "No, no, absolutely not. I
Hmm.
don't want I don't want that. Where somebody got to make a phone call to make this happen." I said, "I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'll just show them they need me."
Hmm.
and and so as I've got heavily involved in the community, became a mover in the check in the community, doing great things, and they figured out real quick they needed me. And so I got the phone call from the organization, would you like to be part of us?
Hmm.
And so I think it was I used the reverse way of doing things, but I could have gotten in through another way. I
Right.
said, but no, that's not. I don't want to get do it that way because then at that point I am a token, and I don't want to be a token.
Right.
They need to know that they need me because of what I bring to the table, and and I think that to me, I was very proud of that when that happened that way.
Well, let me ask you this. You're moving up, and you got these different racial issues. Um, you got your home life. You got yourself developing. Everything's brand new, and I can imagine at some points it was stressful. Like at any point, did you have doubt where you were like, man, I can't do this anymore?
Absolutely, yeah.
He said absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, many times.
Many, many
And
times.
yeah, but I think my strong faith
Okay.
um, helped me through those times um, when I would get to that moment where I can't do this anymore,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember many times, Kenny, where I would show up sometime and when you get your 401k statement,
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
receive that 401k statement, you look at it, and sometimes I looked at my 401k statement with a lens of saying, if 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 I needed to just bail on this thing, am I okay?
Yes.
Yeah,
I,
you know,
I understand what you said perfectly. I often, every quarter, I
yeah.
often think that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was looking through that set of lens, and actually stuffing money away with because I walked with somewhat of a even though I had strong faith in my Lord, I knew He would make a way, but I didn't always know that was the way it's going to be.
Right.
There were times when I felt like that probably, yeah, I may have to walk away from some things, and I always looked at if that was my exit, my 401k was going to be my exit strategy. So I always looked at that as if this thing doesn't work out, that's my exit strategy. So I'm not going to always tell you that things were
Okay.
not stressful because they were. I did walk in some stress, but I endured the stress by thinking about how do I deal with this if I was not here, if
Gotcha.
I had to do something different, and I think that's where I found my peace. I found my peace, and I know God was going to make a way, and I was always trying to have a plan, and if this does not work, then what? And I knew that one thing about it was I had my wife and Mary, but no matter what, if I came home and told her that, honey, you know what, I, I'm no longer with the company or whatever, she would just say, hey, let's look for the let's get it together and let's do what we need to do.
Huh.
So I always knew that I could always leave a stressful position, come home, and at my home, it was a safe place. It
Huh.
was a safe place, and I think executives got to have a safe place, or people that were anybody, not you, ought to have a safe place. You know, that we get up in the morning and we go to work, but then we coming back home ought to be a safe place. Or
It's
that place where we can relax and we can be free from stress and we can be encouraged. Life can be reinforced. We can be rejuvenated. Get back up the next morning. Everything that happened the day before is gone in a sense.
mm-hmm.
You feel like you got a fresh start because you left home and your family is there and everything you're doing is ultimately for your entire family. So I think that's what got me through a lot of my stressful moments.
Well, let me say this, and I have to say this, and I'm glad you brought up your spouse supporting you,
Hmm.
um, because I think that's one of the main issues in America today. Um,
Hmm.
when you going through a stressful time, not only at work but in life in general, um,
Hmm.
your life partner should understand what you're going through or be willing to listen and try to learn what it is you're going through.
Uh-huh.
And I definitely understand. Sometimes you come home with weight, and
Right.
just hearing your wife's voice and hearing her understanding, or her even coming up with a simple way of looking at it, makes all the difference. It makes all the
Absolutely.
difference, and a lot of people don't have that.
Right.
So
That's
that
exactly right.
so that's very important. Which leads me into my next question: Who is
Okay.
who inspires you on your journey?
I had quite a few, and from my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at family, my grandfather, my dad, and you hear probably if you heard me preaching a lot, you hear me talk about a lot about my grandfather and some of the stories that he would tell or some of the things that he would do. So yeah, he that was a lot of my inspiration. And when he passed away in '73, I seemed like I just my love for him was already strong, and the missing of him just reminded me of all the things that he would do and the greatness that he could have been if he had everything that I have today. and then when you look at outside of that, would be would be Dr. Martin Luther King. I've read his speeches. I read his speeches, and I still do. I read a lot of his speeches, and I think they just inspired me. And I can read some of his speeches; it brings me to tears when I read some of them, and when I look at his life and always in his whole life journey. And then that one where I've been to the mountain. By the time I read it and get to the one where I've been at the mountaintop, by the time I'm getting there, when he's in Tennessee, I'm in tears by that time.
Hmm.
And but it inspired me that here it is, somebody who wants to help all these people, and people that he doesn't even know, but he wants to do what's right. And I never forget when True Citizen did an article on me back in, and when I was doing a lot of external work, and True Citizen did an article on me, that was in the early '80s, and I became a Citizen of the Year, I believe, got the Citizen of the Year award. They asked me a question. They said, "Well, what?" Um, um, One of the questions was about what I like doing. I said, I like helping others. And Kenny, I think about that with you and with all that you're doing. I like helping others, and that's what Dr. Martin Luther King was about, helping
Hmm.
others. But all of that was everything I was doing was about helping others, and even my education was going back to help others to see things be better and different, to be more black engineers, to help
Hmm.
us become more of a, help African Americans become more of a engaged. Everything I've done, I seem like I was more interested in helping others, even to this day, as I even start foundations and those kind of things, preaching and pastoring and teaching. And they're about helping others, giving myself away to others. And so those are the things, people that inspired me more than anything, because that was my gifting, is how do I help somebody else along the
Hmm.
way. And that my dad was big on that. He would give the shirt off his back, and I admired him so much for what he would do. Sometimes, he would give away what we had in order to help somebody else.
Be like, hey, you
And
having
I'm
too
like,
much.
come on, Dad. It seemed like he was giving away too much. Exactly. And so Martin Luther King and my grandfather, my dad, and then the other leaders, and even Morehouse leader there was Benjamin Mays, and he was one of my. I have only just a minute with 60 seconds in it. I don't know if you've heard that poem, but that's a wonderful poem that when we got to Morehouse we had to memorize, but it spoke volumes. And you look at that one, it really tells you that you got to do the time you have, do as much as you can while you're here. What would you do if you're on your grave one day and look at that dash on the grave from whatever the time, beginning of your time to the end of your time? What did you do with the dash
Hmm.
within that time? And so I look at my life as, what am I doing? It's not just about me. It's about what did I do for others during that period of time? And so Benjamin Mays was one of my favorites as well.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. It's very important. Because you may be doing the right thing, and you may have a younger person that's beginning their journey, and they're looking for some type of example or blueprint or an idea of what it means to be a man. I know growing up, I would look what we considered successful was doing, and
Hmm.
and for the most part, a lot of the men were, um, factory worker, military. So when I started hearing about you in education and some of the leadership roles you had, it kind of seemed far fetched, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
because you have to look at what the majority of what we saw coming home with a dicky suit on, or
Yeah.
overalls, or greasy or dirty. To hear
Hmm.
about this man from Burke County in suit and tie on the news in the newspaper, um, It's kind of like for somebody seeing Superman for the first time. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Or how you felt when you saw Obama for the first time. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So, but you just living your life and you just doing what's right. But you, I don't want to say accidentally, but not intentionally inspiring other people just by just doing the right thing. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Kenny, while you was talking, Kenny, I know you're going to have a question here, but I did want to make this point though, because as you think about that, you think about surely this guy who's a professional and made it well and did well,
Mm-hmm.
and and I think about those even the other people that inspired me a lot, and I can't help but bring these out and not inspire because I think you get inspiration at different seasons in your life.
True.
Certain people bring you this inspiration for this season in your life, and then you get inspired by this season in your life. And I think about my brother right now. That James, one of my older brothers that has paint and body shop.
Oh yeah.
That
Yes.
that it was after I had finished college, but he was inspiring me during the whole time too. But he started his paint and body shop. He came out of factory work, and he stopped doing that. But he finally decided I'm going to step out on my own and started his own business. And before you knew it, he was still doing two businesses, and then before you know it, he had his own by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And even today, and of course, he went back to school. He went to went to tech school, and then he went to another class. And so education, he was getting different from my education from college, but he was getting it from Augusta Tech, and he got his degree in paint and body there, and he got even some more training. And today, my Lord, he has more work than he could ever do,
Yes.
and
Yes.
built one of the very best, finest body shops you can think of. And so I think about this whole notion of education from the side of the professional where I was to where his job is now, which is now today it will be a professional job in a sense,
Oh yeah.
because of the
Absolutely.
great work that he's doing and probably making a heck of a lot more money than I made, So in his paint and body shop, and then even my brother Steve and who's an electrician and then start his own business and doing some great things today where he's now training. So all of them did the technical route. That was after I finished college that they went and did all these things. I think we inspired each other,
Ah.
and so today we call my older brother. We got a designated time that we call each other, inspire each other on Sunday afternoons, like 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the afternoon. We've been doing that for now 30 years.
Man, that's awesome. That is awesome.
30 years.
And that's why I wanted to do this interview so people can see the ups, the downs, what support mechanisms you use. Um, Even when you was saying before you listen to inspirational tapes, having conversations with your brothers.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So like we're gonna run into walls, but figuring how to get around or through that wall, um, that's the mission. So a lot of people, I think really don't know what leadership is. Nowadays,
hmm
anybody that got a large following on social media, they think that they're leaders. Um,
hmm
but in your words, through your experience, what would you say leadership in a nutshell would be? True leadership.
I think true leadership in um, is being an influencer,
Okay.
and and John Maxwell, and you mentioned a while ago, he's one of those that inspired me along the way. And you listen to his tapes often. He does a lot of leadership work, and John Maxwell says that if you are walking in a direction, if you're going in a direction and nobody is following you, you're just taking a walk. And so it's got to be you got to be leadership is about influencing people to follow you, influencing others, and we do that in all kinds of ways, and we think about mothers influence their children if they're a leader,
Yep.
fathers lead in their families,
Yep.
And my grandfather was leading, even though he wasn't saying, "I'm your leader, I'm your grandfather, do what I say do." No, I was watching him. And
Mm-hmm.
as I watched him, he was leading my life. My daddy was leading my life. My brothers were leading my life. And so, Dr. Martin Luther King didn't know me, didn't know anything about me,
Right.
but what he said inspired me, and I followed. But Benjamin Mays didn't know me, nothing about me, but what he said, I followed. It inspired me to follow. And so I think leadership is, in a nutshell, is influencing others to follow. And and so we can all be leaders right where we are, and so, and in fact, you can be a bad leader or a good leader depending upon what you do.
Because
So
I was going to ask you. My next question will be, can anybody be a leader?
yeah, absolutely, anybody can be a leader, and that can be a bad leader. And we know that we have sometime my children used to come home, and I said, you know what, they picked up something from school from some kid, that might have been a
Mm-hmm.
bully or something, and before you know it, they want to follow them. I'm like, that kid, guess what that bully's doing? He's leading.
This is
and
true.
and
It's a simple
yeah,
form.
he's
It's a
leading
simple form, but
in
it's
simple
true.
form, in a
Yeah, it's
very
true.
simple form. He's leading, and he's just trying to get as many on his team as he can. And so when he influences your child with all that you poured into him, and then before you know it, your child is want to go follow them and go like, what? So that so the bully is leading, and that's in simplistic form. The gang is leading. When people come over to be part of them, they're leading.
Oh
So
yeah. Oh yeah.
and so we have to look at it in a very simplistic form, is that influencing or is what really a leader is. And then so we're leading whether we like it or not at times. And so intentional leadership then becomes one of those things where we intentionally put out put things in place that others will follow, such as guidelines and rules and those kinds of things. That's intentional leadership, that leading in a direction when we go, here's the vision, let's go yonder.
Hmm.
But you gotta have already positioned yourself to be a leader, you know, and meaning that you have put something, whether it be education, where people respect you because of the education that you have, and people will follow you for that reason. You have the papers on the wall to show it, and your positional leadership. They're following you because of what you know and what they believe you can do. Um, and then, or they believe in the vision, or they believe in the mission, then they follow for that reason. At the end of the day, it's about fellowship. It's about fellowship. People got to follow. If you're not, nobody's following you, you're certainly not leading. And if you can't get anybody to follow you, you're not a leader.
You're just taking a walk.
Just taking a walk. Hmm.
uh, in your career, did you have like a blueprint or someone to show you the ropes to make it easier for you?
I wish I could say I did. I really didn't. I think things were shaped as I went along,
Okay.
and as you said that I was inspired for certain things. But my first move to Atlanta was a difficult one, but it was inspired because my son with Down syndrome, and when I made that move, that that really changed my whole trajectory, and for my career. But I think I had a kind of a notion of where I wanted to be. I wanted to be the very best engineer I could possibly be. I'll be honest with you. That was the vision that I had. I was wanting to be a technical person, and I really just wanted to be a good engineer. I think, and 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 then when it turned into management, I really didn't see all of that coming.
Hmm.
And when it turned into being a senior vice president of a leader, I really didn't see a lot of those things coming, because I saw that as I began to develop along the way. And I never forget, I went to Harvard back in 1998. I was working for the company, and they give you this opportunity to do what they call uh, management development. And when they see potential in me, somebody saw something in me. My manager saw something in me and said, I believe you can do some of these other things. And so the moment I saw what those things were available, I realized I could do them, but I really didn't see myself there until I had the exposure.
Mm.
And so networking was a big deal. We had these various networking opportunities. And so they sent me to Harvard as a management development program. And then when I went to Harvard, that's when my eyes opened to so much other things that are going on out there. And that was during the season of the dot-coms um, and a lot of these businesses like now, the Apples of the world that you've seen
The
today.
tech, yeah, the
I
tech
saw
world,
them. Yeah.
the tech
Yeah.
development, yeah.
The tech development was happening about that same time. So I did all kinds of studies in various companies. We did business cases of various companies, and it opened my eyes to what the future would look like, and
Mm.
where I would fit into the future. So if you look at that, programs like that or things like that, opportunities like that, open my eyes along the way. So every step, it's kind of like you're driving a car, and your headlights, you don't know what's down the road, but if you can get close enough to it with your headlights, you begin to see it. You see
Mm.
more and more, and you just got to keep moving. And as you keep moving, the headlights keep showing you more and more of what's happening.
Mm.
My life has been like that. And my life started out, that I saw part of it, the being an engineer, graduating and becoming a good engineer. But once I became a good engineer, getting the headlights shine some more, and so, oh, guess what? You can be a manager.
Mm.
And then when I got to be a manager, getting the headlights shine some more and got some more enlightenment, more light. Oh, guess what? Not only you can be a general manager. Then I got more. Then you can actually be an officer, and a vice president, and senior vice president, and ultimately even higher if you like. So I think as you grow and so I think you keep being educated along the way, because I think education is lifetime, it's lifelong learning. You just keep learning more and more and read. And I'm an advocate. I love to read, avid reader. I love to read, and I'll just read stuff, and more you learn, your eyes are open to what next, and what can I do next? What are the opportunities now? And because you think nobody really got the big crystal ball, and of the future and what the future will hold, but you have some idea of what you can do now. But as you grow older and you become more wiser, and you begin to your enlightenment is better, and you read and study and look at things. Even the stock market, I got involved in the stock market back, and I taught one of my sons how to get involved early on. But I got involved in the stock market when I was, after college, and learned about the stock market. But see, a lot of African Americans was engaged in the stock market. They would put their monies in CDs and things like that, 1%. And, I didn't know about equities, didn't know about all these things. But I learned later on. I began to read a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and learn about that early on, how you invest your money into various ways, and you invest. And so I learned about investing, and that had nothing to do with my career, but that had to do with living.
Well,
You know, it,
it actually brings me to my next question, and the question was, would you say education is a necessary tool in the business world, but you took a spin and made it a necessary tool to life?
exactly, exactly. Educate. See, and you just nailed it. Really, a lot of people look at they got to get a good education just to get a job. You got to get a good education to live.
Mm.
And in this world that we're in today, that you know um and I tell Mary all the time when I see it happening, is that people perish for lack of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and so if they don't know, um you know right now, for instance, I was in the bank, and I guess I'm condemning the banks a little bit, because I was in the bank, and went through the drive-through window, and I said, "Well, tell me what your new CD rates are right now." They said 0.01. I said, "What?" This point 0.01. That's horrible. Don't you just want me to want to be? I guess I should just be glad you got my money. I guess 0.01%, 0.01%. And then I kept pushing on a little bit further, and I said, well, what about your advisors? I said, what about some others? And she said, well, now if you talk to the advisor, you might get up to 4 to 5%.
Mm.
I said, huh? I said, okay. So if you're talking to to an advisor at a certain level of money, and most people would have the money to meet those needs, they just didn't know. If you don't know that, you're gonna be just getting that 0.01 or 10 or 0.65 or 1.1%, when you really could be getting 4 to 5%. So lack of knowledge
Mm-hmm.
was robbing me of 3 to 4% of money.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as you read these things, you begin to understand how banks operate, how they compete, and I know, because I know about it because I've been on bank boards,
Mm-hmm.
and so I know that there's a different level,
Right.
so but most people don't know that, so you just have to push on them and say, no, well, don't you have another for these other customers, so you have to know. I think the education, to me, gets you to that point of understanding how to navigate the different things that are going on in the world today.
Well,
And like even now with with technology, the seniors have to, and I've been telling people in my church, seniors, you need to understand technology. How you going to survive if you don't have young people to help you? You got to know. You got to learn these kinds of things. And even with Medicare, Medicaid, all these things now, they're technology driven. You gotta learn them.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Hmm.
And it boils down when we're talking about African Americans. It boils down to creating think tanks,
Hmm.
groups to talk about this. Like we can have groups once a week to talk about business and business opportunities and answer questions, and but it all goes back to this podcast topic, which is education. How can it
Absolutely.
empower your life?
Absolutely.
And that's all it
Yeah.
is. Like people think education is something institutionalized. You got to go to college or you got to go to some kind of learning institution. No,
Hmm.
you can go around your elders and learn a lot. You can go around guys that work with their hands a lot and learn. Like that's how I learned how to work on a car, watching my dad, my granddad.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
and again with the stocks, I learned two friends of mine. We was out playing pool, and they end up teaching me the basis of stock trading. Um,
That's right.
so education is all around us. The thing is, when you recognize it when it's being taught to you. I remember a friend of mine, very successful guy, and I was interviewing him, and I asked him. I said, "How do you want me to address you? What's your?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "What's your title?" And he jokingly said, he said, "Man, I'm a student." I said, "What?" He said, "I will always be a student."
That's great.
And I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean? He said, "A wise man know he would never learn it all."
That's right. Continuous learning.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you're thinking about education's life, it's life. It's all about life. You're absolutely right. And I think about these, even when some of our folks try to get loans, or we try to get a loan, and if we see one of those car lots, they got to go and get a loan. Well, if they're trying to buy a car, for instance, and they go and see, you buy it here, pay here,
Hmm.
beware, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
because then that means that, if you, and they got to think about interest rates, how you
Hmm.
calculate those interest rates. And they might say the car costs this much, but then there's, that's okay. But then look at the paperwork, read the paperwork, because now the interest rate is going to jack your payments up like you wouldn't believe. And it may be a long time when you can go right down the road, get the bank to finance it, or get somebody else to finance it, buy the car from them. Then you bet off in life. so you think about the whole. It's about education. It's about
Mm-hmm.
knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's about knowledge. And the knowledge that you probably wouldn't get. Some of this you probably not gonna get holistically in college, or not gonna get. But you get it. But one thing about what college does for you, it teaches you to analyze things. It
Yeah,
teaches you to
I
be
agree.
aware. It teaches you to open your mind up to what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in the world. And so, you can get that without going to college. If you had some wisdom from others, like you said, they'll tell you that, once today you can go online, you can search that search engine called, you you can Google this and Google that, about anything you want to. And I think when people start even making purchases or doing things, think about how do I educate myself about this issue before I
Mm-hmm.
even do it. And so they got education now got to be looked at in a whole new light, as you said, not just an institution, but think about how do I educate myself about everything I need to do. First of all, can I do this without taking it down to the shop? Can I find
Yeah,
can I
it'll
find
be cheaper.
yeah, and my son sometime I think he gets on me because I'll ask him, I call and say, let me ask you, how do you do this right here? He said, I tell you what, why don't you just Google it and get one of those, the
Or
little app,
YouTube. Or YouTube.
YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you,
yeah.
YouTube. You get on YouTube, and guess what? When you get to YouTube, the YouTube is better than he could have ever told me.
Oh yeah. Now it might be a 12-year-old boy telling you, but he's on point. I wanna
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, I wanna add to the car thing. Um uh I went to go buy a car one time, and I was always taught by my family, you know, have a great credit score no matter what, pay your bills on
Uh-huh.
time, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So I had partial education. So when I went down there, um, the first thing he asked me, "What do you want your monthly payments to be?"
Uh-huh.
See how I did that?
Yeah, yeah. I know.
So
I
he
can't
didn't talk.
stand that when somebody
He
asks
did.
me that.
He
I can't
didn't. He
stand that.
didn't. He didn't say you gonna pay a darn near $1 million for this car. He was like,
Uh-huh.
"What do What do you want your monthly payments to be?" I said, "Well, how much is the overall cost?" "Well, we ain't gonna worry about that. Let's just tell me where you want to be at on your payments." I was like, "Well, I would like to get the car for 15 grand because I think they wanted like on the sticker it was like 18 something or something like that."
Uh-huh.
But to make a long story short, so we went back and forth on that for a while, and so so he got me down at a really low monthly payment. So we talking, 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 talking. So as we talking, he's sliding the paper to me to sign.
Uh-huh.
Going back to what you just said, read your paperwork, read your paperwork. So he's still
Mm-hmm.
talking to me. So I looked down, and he was like, "Well, just sign there." I said, "No, you're gonna let me read this."
Right.
And he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just, I figured you had to go." I said, "No, cause this bill gonna be with me for a while."
Uh-huh.
This joker had, I think, if my memory serves me, about like 12%. I know it was
Wow.
high. It was
See?
super high, right?
Yeah.
I got the pen, I put it on the paper, and I slid it back to him. I said, "Man, you dirty dog." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Dude, look at my credit score."
Uh-huh.
And my credit score was pretty high. I think
Yeah.
around like a seven something, some change.
Uh-huh.
But he was like, "Wait, just wait, just wait." So he does the whole walk out, talk to the finance manager, come back in type deal.
Uh-huh.
"Okay, man, you can get it for, I think it was like 3% or something like that." I said, "Man, please," and I pushed the paper further to him. I grabbed my stuff and I just walked out, and they running through the parking lot. The sales manager, Mr. Ma, Mr. Ma. No, I said, "Man, why were you not honest with me? You saw my credit score in the beginning.
Exactly.
I know the credit score dictates my APR. I know
Mm-hmm.
that much. And for you to sit up there and take a chance on overcharging me, really?"
Yeah.
And
That's right.
he's still trying to talk to me. I said, "No, dude, you learned a very valuable lesson today. Everybody's not an idiot." And I drove off.
I've done many of them like that, and I'm glad you share that. When they ask me that question, I already not, no, you don't ask me what my payments will be. You
Right.
tell me how what you want for your car.
Exactly.
I
And
want
the
to see whether you.
APR.
I want. I want to know whether you compete with everybody else because I've checked prices. I know what this car values. So
Hmm.
let's start from the car price, what you want for your car. Then we'll talk about the rest of the things.
Right. Right. Matter of fact, I got a fun fact for everybody listening. An old lady told me this one time. I was in the market getting a car, and she said, well, how you gonna do it? And I said, well, I'm gonna go do this and that. She said, no. She said, you got a credit union? I said, yeah. She said, if you go online, to Auto Trader or whatever, she said, download, the information on the car. It had a car dealership, all the information your credit union need. Go to them and work the deal out with them before you get there. So what I
Right. That's exactly right.
right. So what I did, the car was way in another city, right?
Uh huh.
And the bank already told me. I mean, well, not the bank, credit union. Okay, good price. We'll give it to you for this percent. All you got to do is go there. If you like it, call us. We'll take care of it from there.
Hmm.
The easiest transaction I ever did, and I did not have to haggle with the car dealership because the
Exactly.
people that's paying for the car already told me, what it's gonna be. So
Exactly.
for
That's the
anybody
way to do
buying,
it.
yeah, anybody buying a car, go on Auto Trader, find the one you want, go by your credit union first, get the money, and then when you go there, you say, this is the number you call my credit union. They'll take care of it. Boom. You don't have to go back and forth with them at all.
Exactly. All that
Easy.
haggling,
Yeah,
Yeah,
easiest
I like
transaction I ever did. Yep.
it. I like to buy them like that.
Yeah.
Because you're getting that haggle with these used car salesmen or even the new car salesmen. Doesn't matter these days. You gotta be sharp and on your toes because they'll try to talk to you and push paper in front of you, and you gotta be sharp. And if you know you've educated yourself before you hit that, get out of your car or whatever you're doing, educate yourself
Hmm.
before that.
Hmm.
As you shared, I think that makes all the difference in the world. And they'll treat you differently the moment you
Yes.
start talking the right language. You know that APRs and
Hmm.
this percent or
Or front end, back end.
yeah, back end, front end,
Hmm.
values. And yeah, I've already looked at the
Kelly Blue
various
Book.
books and Kelly Blue Book. You start hitting those terminologies with them. Let me tell you, they come back down to their senses pretty quick.
Hmm. Or
And understand who they're dealing with.
right. Or I've been there, and then they try to push another car off on me. Right. I went to automotive school, so I was like, I don't want that. And they be like, well, it's I can get you a better deal. I was like, yeah, but they known for this part to go or that part to go. and,
Right.
and you see them like, okay. Then they try another car. I'm like, no, that one had a recall on the brake system. Matter of fact, the same model. Oh,
Hmm.
oh, oh.
Hmm.
You know,
That's good.
you,
That's good.
you know how many times I went to a dealership and they actually offered me a job? At least 3 times. At least 3 times they
How about
actually
that?
offered me a job. Yeah,
How about that?
yeah.
How about that?
So
But it shows the value of education. It really
right,
does.
right,
Hmm.
and that's all we're talking about here. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to be educated because I know in the hip hop world, um, they don't celebrate educated black men. They don't. You got to be a
Hmm.
thug, or you got to be a rebel.
Hmm.
It's the opposite of what you really need to be,
Exactly.
and that's to be educated
Exactly.
and well rounded, and not be intimidated by somebody else's race or
Hmm.
this corporate language. If you become well rounded, it goes back to those same feelings you and I had when we was in those board meetings, and you the only one that looked like you. But if you confident in your education, um, it doesn't even matter.
Doesn't matter. That's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
right. Hmm.
So we're gonna wrap this up. My final question to you: take a moment and let's say you're talking to young America. What advice would you give a young person that's about to graduate high school and go out there and take a career in the business world?
Okay. Good, very good question because certainly remember me being at the junior high school or senior, getting ready to push off into that and not sure what's going on. But I knew the research I had done, around engineering and around the potential for job opportunities, and it matched my passion. And but I also know that some of my other friends that went in another direction, and something they did because it was easy. They did, they may have done some of the social work kind of things or a degree in something that was going to be easy, and they ended up not getting a job. I went the hard route, seemingly hard to some people, and opened up so many opportunities for myself when I was done. So I think as they think about what will they do, think about their passion, think about what they really want, and educate themselves. As you said earlier, we've been talking about educating yourself, and education is about life. It's life, it's life. They just get ready to do some formal education when they get ready to go to college. So the first thing they'll do is whatever they decide they want to do or have thought about doing, begin now to get educated about those different careers and about where the future, what is the projections of the future, what's going to happen with that kind of a career in the future, what can you do with a degree in this area, what is it, technical school, or is it college that I really need to do, which is it, because nowadays, technical school is in some areas better than you would go if you go to college, because the opportunities there and getting a job later on matches your passion. It prepares you better for a certain job that you would like to do, and certainly, especially business ownership, and getting so I think that they really need to do the research and really need to spend some time, and then find somebody that they can be, I won't say as much as a mentor, but they can ask questions about it. They can ask questions to, somebody who's been in that field, somebody who's they trust, or maybe get that guidance counselor to say, is there somebody we can talk to, or can you get us to some areas? That's what a guidance counselor ought to be doing. They ought to be showing them. They ought to be showing them, connecting them to opportunities in the future, and even in the present, what can it do, and beyond basketball, beyond. It's okay if they got a great talent, to do basketball, but that's sometimes we can relegate ourselves to just that, or we relegate ourselves to being the next hip hop, singer, or of doing some other careers. But stretch your mind, let your mind be open to careers in whatever area that makes sense for you and your passion, and the right thing for you to do for the future.
Mr. Dukes, as always, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. I heard your name before I met you, and it was always good things. And people like you is what inspire us. Thank you for speaking with us. Thank you for stopping by the Chat House. You have a wonderful, blessed day, sir.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Kenny. Appreciate you letting me do it.